Hi guys, this is Rhonda Miller with Purple for Parents Indiana. We are so excited today to be joined with Mark and Amber Archer of Fearless Feature Films. They are working on a documentary that Jennifer and I both have been participating with them on. And so I wanted to bring them on this today to let them talk about their film and let you guys know what's happening. And they're actually a way to help. So as we get started, I would first like them to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about them, about their background, and what got them started in this. So if you guys want to go ahead.
Sure. Well, thank you, Rhonda, for having us on. My name is Amber Archer, and this is my husband, Mark. And we started a documentary film titled The Mind Polluters, and it's all about the sexualization of our children through the public education system. And maybe you're like us and had no idea these things were going on. But it's just one of those things when once you know, you can't undo what you know. And so, we just really felt called, the Lord calling us to do something about it. And our background is in filmmaking, especially for Mark.
Yeah, so we, a couple of years ago, we started this ministry. And the first film that we did was a documentary about the now infamous abortion doctor, George Ulrich Klopfer, who was, after his death, was found to have been hoarding 2,411 aborted fetal remains in his home and his car. And we had started that documentary film about a year before he died, and we actually interviewed him in his clinic for the film. And so that film is called Inwood Drive. That was our first release, and that's out in the marketplace. It's on Amazon Prime. It's now on Peeps TV and also on Vimeo on demand. Mm-hmm.
And you can learn more about our filmmaking ministry at fearlessfeatures.org. And we have a podcast every Tuesday and Thursday. So I know your listeners and people watching, if you want to know about the Mind Polluters, we've been sharing the interviews that we've been documenting along this process, because we got with you guys for your the Sexual Revolution conference that you did in Napanee, which was amazing. Met a lot of people in this space who are fighting the comprehensive sex ed, social emotional learning. It's been mind blowing where the Lord has led us this far.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch your guys' journey as you've set off on this track to do this film. So thank you guys for doing that and for bringing attention to what's happening in our schools. So tell us a little bit about who all you've interviewed and where your travels have taken you to do this documentary.
You want to start?
Oh my goodness. Well, so it's
lengthy at this point.
The first thing that we shot for it was at the Sexual Revolution conference, and we weren't sure where to start, but we knew that we needed to hear who you had there, and that you just got to start by starting. So we did that, and then on the way home we said, okay, this is what we need to do. And we started making a list of people that we had heard and that you had told us about that we needed to interview. So not long after that, we interviewed Rhonda and Jennifer and State Representative Christy Stutzman. We wanted the legislative angle.
And just about bringing Christy Stutzman in, we watched, and just to kind of give people a background of how we even got started on this, Mark and I had sat down and we were watching an episode on Blaze TV, and I think it was is her name Rebecca Friedrichs, for Kids and Country. And I happened to repost that. This is before I shut down, before we closed our Facebook pages because we kept getting censored. But I shared that episode from Blaze TV, and Christy Stutzman is actually the one who reached out to me, and she's like, hey, Amber, did you know that there's going to be all these ladies at the Sexual Revolution, and they're going to be talking about these things and how we can start making changes in our local communities? I was like, no. So that's really where this whole thing started, and it's amazing. So yeah, so Christy Stutzman. And
so after that, then the next big interview that we got was with Dr. Judith Reisman, and we went down to her the Reisman Institute at Liberty, and interviewed her, and just blew our minds. Just being with her, and she's such an inspirational character. She was just kind of this caricature. You couldn't help but just be influenced by her, and just her spunk and her attitude and just her depth of knowledge.
And for people who don't know who she is, Jennifer, you worked with her. So can you kind of give people a background of who she is and why she's so important?
Yeah, Dr. Reisman was the world-renowned expert on Alfred Kinsey and his sexual revolution that was set off here in Indiana on the campus of Indiana University. And so she became a very close friend of mine, and we talked quite often. But she was well known across the globe on standing up and fighting back against him, against the pornography industry. In fact, she was, I think it was Croatia, where she was sued by Playboy, and she won that battle against Playboy. But she traveled and outspoke on what was happening with the sexualization of our children through Alfred Kinsey and the efforts he had with even our government. He was tied in with our government. And so, yeah, she was quite a pillar in the battle, I would say.
Which is, and that's why I thought it would be good for you to tell people who she is, because you introduced her to us. And I mean, we are so thankful and grateful for that connection, especially now since she has passed. And we're just grateful for that interview, and what an honor to remember her and to capture her life's work through this film.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you guys had the opportunity to sit down and talk with her. And that would be huge. I'm sure she will play a huge role in the film.
Yeah. Oh, she does.
Yes, she does. So not long after that, then we were down to Florida to interview Alex Newman, who writes for the New American and the Epoch Times. He also founded an organization called Public School Exit. And so that was worth the trip right there, because he gave so much depth into the history of the public school system, John Dewey, things like that. Then we found ourselves going to Texas to interview what we call the Texas contingency. So that was Audrey Warner and Carol Ayala and
Monica Klein
from It Takes a Family. And where did we go next?
I know, I had to make a list. Oh, and then we were in Nebraska.
Oh, yes.
We went to Nebraska because we went with you guys. We started working on the obscenity exemptions, which is really interesting. And after Indiana kind of fizzled, and then at the same time, Nebraska was having the same, going through the same legislative process for their obscenity exemptions. And so we went to Nebraska and interviewed Mark Bonkowitz and Maris Bentley. I knew you'd remember. And a couple others for just for information. And
spent a lot of time hanging out at various state houses.
Yeah.
So we hung out at the Indiana State House, which was interesting, being actually in the room where we technically weren't allowed to be, but by the Lord's grace, we were allowed in there. And not only documented the testimony of people like you and Jennifer, but also documented the
opposition,
the unmasked opposition, which ended up being what they got so upset about, I think, was because we were in there with a movie camera. So we documented that process in Indiana, and then we were in Nebraska. Then not long after that, we went out west and we interviewed Diane Douglas, who was the former superintendent of public instruction for the state of Arizona, who's also with Alex Newman's group, Public School Exit. And she had a fascinating perspective, obviously, from dealing with Red for Ed in its original location there in Arizona. And then Craig Sawyer, who runs Veterans for Child Rescue. And as a combat veteran, he has a really interesting perspective on, Veterans for Child Rescue. All they do is assist law enforcement in breaking up pedophile rings. And to hear him describe what pedophiles do to groom children, and then to compare that to multiple descriptions that we have of the grooming process in the classrooms, and it's the same process. And so, and if you're not familiar with Craig, he has a documentary film out called Contraland, which I think you actually referred to me, which is how I got to know him. And then I made the connection that he knew Judith, and that film is staggering to watch too. So
it is.
And then, go ahead.
I'd say that film was quite an eye opener. So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned the grooming on that side of things. So tell me how, when you talked to him, how you made the connection of what's happening inside the classroom then too. I'm curious.
Well, it's just the same language. It's
breaking down the barriers and normalizing the words that they say and actions. It's really, I don't even know how to describe it. If you can listen to it through the podcast, and we kind of made that connection. There's like this aha moment in a part of the in the podcast, in our interview with him. And I was like, do you really mean? Wait a second. And his sister is a teacher. And so he's had a lot of just being able to connect the dots for us for how the pedophiles speak to and engage children is the same way that the teachers are speaking to and engaging children. We just see it on completely different levels.
What you find when you do a film like this, or any documentary film, but it's different than, so when we did the abortion film in Wood Drive, you knew that there was a linear story there. It was mostly things that had happened in the past. And so you knew basically the storyline, and then you had to find people to talk about the various points along the story, and you assemble it together in a linear fashion. With the Mind Polluters, there's not one story. It's an ongoing thing, and it's more of a subject than an actual specific story. And what you find is that everyone that you talk to basically says the same thing. Everyone's got their own angle on what they're working on. And so, you and Jennifer, for example, you're very engaged in Indiana in the legislative process and things like that. And so when we talk to you, we want to get specific with that because you're the experts in that part of the field. And then when you talk to somebody like Craig, he's out boots on the ground, and they're busting guys and putting them in jail and prosecuting them. And you talk to somebody like Dan Douglas or Alex Newman, they all have their part to play, but they all describe the same thing. And that was the thing, listening to Craig, and he starts talking about how they groom these kids. And we both stopped and went, this is exactly the same thing that Dr. Reisman described. This is exactly the same thing that Rhonda and Jennifer described. The terms are nearly identical. And so grooming is grooming, whether it's directly or indirectly. So we listen to a lot of people. We listen to what they say, and we notice these patterns. And that's how you put together a film like this, is by finding those patterns.
And that's actually pretty frightening when you stop and think about it. When you've got, Craig Sawyer telling you the exact same things that we're seeing taking place in the schools, as far as the grooming techniques and the the wordings that used, and we're seeing an explosion of that. We're really starting to see it even in Indiana. And even though our law is, an abstinence outside of marriage, law, schools are violating that, and it doesn't
Mhm.
matter until parents start banding together and hold them accountable. They will continue to do so, and so this film is going to be very, very important to have it put together and finalized. So, what is your goal? When do you expect to be able to do that?
Well, right now we have just started, we've gone as far as we can with the resources that we have, and we have just started a crowdfunding campaign. We are looking for 5,000 people who care enough about our country and our children, who are willing to give $25 so that we can complete and release this film. The American people really need to know. And as far as we're concerned, we are all one body in many parts, as scripture tells us. And we know that the Lord is sending the right people. We have prayed fervently about every interview we have done and where the Lord has led. Well, and not to mention, we were just down in Kentucky with Ken Ham from the Creation Museum and the Ark, Answers in Genesis, and really bringing in the worldview aspect. And like he says, you're either for Christ or you're against. And the schools are definitely against Christ. And so, I don't know how else to say. So we're looking for help financially. We need people to give financially. And like I said, 5,000 people who care enough for $25. Yeah.
So how do people go about doing that? Do you have a link?
So you can, if you want to give online, you can go to our website, fearlessfeatures.org. If you are on your cell phone, there's a text to give option. If you text classrooms with an S to 27777, you can get there. Yeah. So we'll leave links for you.
Okay. So we will share those links at the bottom of the video, so that way you can help us to complete this task. It's a monumental effort, and we're very, very grateful to Mark and Amber for doing all of the hard work in the background and the research and traveling the country, speaking to different people to put this film together. This is going to be a huge thing that we need to have done, and it needs to be exposed. Mark and Amber have done a tremendous job of doing that. And so we would encourage our members and our followers, just $25. If you can give more, that's even better, but just simply $25 towards the effort of completing this project. And I think we were hoping at one point to have it perhaps done by fall, but a lot of it depends on how soon we can get those resources raised. So this is something that, oftentimes as Jennifer and I travel the state, people are asking, what can we do to help? Well, this is going to be huge. When we get this film put together and produced and completed, then this will be a huge monumental effort to make people aware of what's really happening and making those connections, as Mark went into, about, the grooming of, the pedophiles that are torturing children. And so, this is something you can do, just as simple as $25. So we will put those links at the bottom, and we're just asking you guys to help join our effort to get the word out on a bigger scale, because this will likely go global. And so that is our hope, our effort, to wake people up across the globe as to what's happening in the classrooms, because this isn't just an Indiana issue. No. This isn't just a national issue. It is a global issue. So are there any things that you guys would like to say before we close? Any additional?
Well, I think it's really important because, as you know, the legislative sessions start January, and that's why we're really pushing and really praying that we can get this film done by the fall, just so that people are aware before this next legislative session happens. Because I tell you what, your votes matter; they do matter, regardless. I mean, you guys become a force multiplier for truth. Especially when you partner with us. What we're doing, we understand very well how quickly films can go and how many people they can reach in a very short amount of time. And so that's really our hope, and our goal is to get this film out to as many people as possible in a short amount of time so that everybody can be caught up to speed. I mean, take you through the history and understand where this has come from and how you can fight it. And really in your own communities, it's individual communities, like with what you guys are doing across the state of Indiana. It really takes everybody.
Yeah. And there's really there is a big gap in the wall right now with Hollywood. As awful as the lockdowns and everything have been, it has also severely damaged and broken a lot of the supply chains, if you will, for Hollywood. And there are huge openings for Christian content, and especially documentaries. And our point with the film is to take all of this confusion that all of us as parents especially feel. What is CSE, SEL, CRT, all these things? What is all this? And to distill it down to a real educational piece and a call to action. One of the things that we saw happen with Inwood Drive was that Right to Life groups would take it and buy copies and give DVD copies of it to legislators to educate them. And I can see that happening with this because it needs laid out. And so what we do as filmmakers is we go and we get all of the experts like Rhonda and Jennifer and Dr. Judith Reisman and Craig Sawyer, and we weave their stories all together and distill it down. This is what it is. This is what you can do about it. So it's something that we have a golden opportunity right now, and we're jumping on it.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. We do have a golden opportunity, and now is the time. And Dr. Reisman said at the end of the One Children video, it's happening on our watch, and if we don't do something about it, it's all of us that carry that guilt. So I just am so thankful for you guys and your efforts and what you've done to, spend the last several months on the road doing all the research to compile this all. So we're just asking our members to come alongside us and alongside Mark and Amber, and to help get this film produced. The sooner the better. Do you guys have any sponsors, or are you willing to
we are 100% donor funded, so that we do not have to compromise in any way. This is why we keep it grassroots, and we're going the crowdfunded effort and route, because too often, I mean, if there are people who want to sponsor, that's fine, but you don't get a say. You don't get a say in the end.
It's a conscious decision.
It is.
We're
talking about hard things here.
Yeah. When we have seen through the years, and I've done plenty of film projects where I take on investors, and people who invest large sums of money always want to have influence over the message,
or take out
take things
just
out.
Things like, we had such a hard time with the abortion film, because there were things, we had people, literally distribution companies, tell us, you're going to have to take that out. I'm sorry, I can't hide abortion. I can't hide the fact that, we had to bury 2,411 babies. I'm not taking it out. And Same thing with this. I'm not taking it out. We can't water this down. This is really happening. If we don't speak for our children, who will?
And this wasn't just big Hollywood.
No.
This was faith-based film distributors who would look at Inwood Drive and say, yeah, great film. Can you change this? We'd like it if you would kind of shape it more like this. And we said, no, just forget it, And so we saw that with that film, and we know that it's we're
very cautious, to say the least.
Even more pronounced with something like the Mind Polluters. So what we won't compromise on ever is the truth. And so that's, as Amber said, that's why we have decided to do crowdfunding, to take it right to the people that we know care and want to have a film like this out.
It's a film for the people, by the people.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So guys, we really need your help. We are asking our followers to just chip in $25 if you can.
It'll go a long way.
Absolutely. So it's something simple as that. You can have, say you participated in helping to create this amazing film, and I have watched their previous documentary. They do a fabulous job. So I highly recommend participating in the completion of this film, and you will be able to say I helped participate. So again, thank you guys for everything you've done in putting all this effort together. And if there's anything you want to final say, go for it.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, it's interesting that you were saying that you can have a say in this film. We've actually been working with our entertainment attorney and figuring out a way to allow people, just put you at the end of the credits. If you give and you want your name on to say, I stand behind this, we're working on a way. So whoever gives today, you'll probably get an email later on asking you if you would like your name at the end of the credits, because it really does take all of us. This is not just a Mark and Amber film. It's not. The Lord has just called us to be hands and feet and do the work. And we're praying that others will come alongside and their names also can be honored.
That would be really, really neat to see.
Mm-hmm.
How many Americans, how many Hoosiers are willing to chip in to have their name put on the credit for helping to produce a major film like this. So that's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today and to share what your film entails and help to give us the promotion of it. So
yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right. See you guys.
Yeah.